Hey, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, Frenemies. Joined as always by David Swor. I am DJ Cox. And here we go, David. We are going to the mighty north, to the state of Wisconsin, to the Milwaukee Brewers. I knew you were going to say that. You'd like to hear me say Wisconsin?
Dude, we really screwed up on this one. It just hit me. And I know this is something we usually talk about at the end of the episode, but I want to give a shout out to Josh Moose Anderson, our friend from Wisconsin and probably a Brewers fan. DJ, do you know for sure?
Ooh, Moose Anderson, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I do not know for sure, but that's a good – you better grab that one right off the top here because I had nothing for that, so.
Yeah, so listen here. I've got to throw this story out there. If I don't, it'll haunt me. It still haunts me, actually, but I just have to share it and get it off my chest. So we used to have to take batting practice in an old elementary school on campus. And honestly, if you could define haunted house, this was it. It was like a 4-story elementary school with junk in it everywhere. And I definitely remember showing up on campus expecting, the college experience, baseball experience. And they took me up there and said, "This is your batting cage." And it was like, what is this? But anyway, so we're up there. We're hitting on the stage of what was once their auditorium. I walk in there one day, and there stands Josh Moose Anderson, butt naked, taking batting practice. I'm still scarred, Moose. I had to share that story. It's still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Maybe the second funniest things I've ever seen, Josh apparently has a food allergy. Do you remember this, DJ?
Nope.
He got a hold of some fish, and I am not kidding. His lips were like this big. So now me and Josh have this thing. I got hit in the face with a baseball in my senior year, and so he always asks me, "Hey, Dave, how's the schnoz?" And I always ask him, "How's the lip?" So I wish I would have got a picture of that. It totally looked like a cartoon, but those are my 2 favorite Josh Moose Anderson stories. So, DJ, we should have called him up for this one.
What ended up happening to him not coming back in the spring?
I honestly don't remember.
I don't know either, but getting back to your
school?
story, man, what if he would have fouled the ball off the ground and came up?
It was a real sensitive situation, man. Yeah, it was bad, but I was laughing too hard. It was one of those things you just couldn't look away. I walked in there, and I thought, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Everybody was laughing, and Josh was up there taking full hacks, butt naked. So did he not play in the spring? I guess he didn't. I think I'd forgotten that, but he was still there in school.
He did not play in the spring. He was not on the spring team.
But he was in school because – again, I got hit in the face that year, and that was definitely in the spring. And we would bring that up. So, maybe concentrating on grades or whatever. I don't know. I guess I had forgotten that. But you're right. I don't remember him playing in the spring, but definitely there in the fall.
There's a character there, right? No doubt about that.
Yes.
And wow, I completely missed him. I missed him obviously being from that state and probably a Brewers fan. And there you go, man, because I was going to get to that point and ask about Donnie Cruz again. So at least we got somebody. At least we got somebody to talk to tonight about a former teammate. And, man, I mean, it would have been nice to have him join us for the Brewers. But we'll move on, and we'll see what we can do here tonight with this team. And, David, I think we talked a little bit already about the Brewers. Man, I don't know. I'm not feeling the love at all this year with the 2020 Brewers. And I think you feel the same way. So I'll let you kick us off with a little bit of a recap of the 2019 team, or you can jump right in. Go for it.
I cannot figure this out. I have spent more time studying this team than any team we have done so far. So 2018 Brewers go to the playoffs. That offseason, they basically don't do anything, not much of anything. And then right at the end of the offseason, actually past the offseason, coming up into spring training, they managed to stumble on Mike Moustakas and Yasmani Grandal. And Those are obviously two great pickups. Moustakas is very underrated, good for 30 to 35 homers every year. Grandal, one of the top catchers in the league. They signed him to a one-year deal. And suddenly, somehow, some way, the Brewers are kind of contenders. So they start off the first month pretty hot, and then they just go into this swoon where it's like 500 baseball the rest of the year. They have some injuries come up, and up pops Keston, and I don't know if I'm going to say his last name right, Huira, I believe is how you say his name. He kind of lights a fire. Trade deadline rolls around. They get Drew Pomerantz, Jordan Lyles, and all of a sudden in September, they completely blow up. 18-2 in one stretch. And guess what happened, DJ? They hopped the Cubs, buddy. Knocked them out. And so they sneak into the playoffs for the second year. And I'm going to go back to, we said this about Kevin Cash. Craig Counsell has to be a wizard. I do not understand this at all. I guess it helps that you have one of the best players on the planet in Yelich, one of the best pitchers on the planet in Hader. But, man, everything else around it, I just don't get it. How do you feel about it?
So I agree with you. And if he somehow pulls something out here in 2020, he's really going to impress me, Craig Counsell. Because like you said, this team did add a lot of talent last year. So for them to get as far as they did, I wouldn't say – it surprised me they passed the Cubs, don't get me wrong. But it didn't surprise me to a huge extent. If he gets there with this team, I will be absolutely shocked because this is a completely different Brewers team from 2019. It's not even close to last year, if you ask me. And yeah, I mean, I am impressed with the job that Counsell did with this team last year because, I mean, here's the thing. I was remembering back to this, David, and the Brewers snuck into the playoffs as a wild card and played the Nationals, if you remember this. The Nationals snuck into the playoffs too because the Braves won the division, and obviously the Nationals are the defending champs now. Well, if you remember this correctly, the Brewers had the Nationals done in the bottom of the eighth of that game. It was pretty much over, and it was 3-1 going into the bottom of the eighth inning, and Drew Pomerantz had pitched the bottom of the sixth and the seventh, if you remember this. And he was mowing everybody down. And, David, I kid you not, when I was watching this game, they were in Washington, so the Nationals were the home team. So you got to figure there's an eighth inning and a ninth inning coming up. And Pomerantz had dealt in the sixth and seventh. I kid you not. I was like, Counsell is in a tough spot here because he's got the best pitcher in the world warming up, but Pomerantz is absolutely dealing right now. So I wouldn't have messed with it. And I get why he brought Hader in, so I'm not, like, throwing it on him because you can't knock him for putting the best pitcher in the world in the eighth inning to do the eighth and the ninth after Pomerantz went 6 and 7. But if you remember this correctly, the Brewers' season ended in the bottom of the eighth inning with some unbelievable circumstances. Hader gets the first guy out. He beans Michael Turner, and he gets first base. He gets the second out. And there's still only one guy on. So he's still in a good spot. And then Ryan Zimmerman breaks his bat and hits it over second base. I believe Anthony Rendon walked, if I'm not mistaken, to get the bases loaded. And then up comes Juan Soto, man. And if you remember this, it's like I said, it's a two-run game at this point. It's 4-2. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name who was out there in right field because Trent Grisham was out in right. If you remember this, because Yelich was out from September 11th till the end of the season. So your big dog, your best player is out, and the Brewers are in the one-game playoff without him, which killed them too. But they've hit the ball to right field. It gets under his glove. All 3 runs score. The Nationals take the lead, and game over, man. One of the craziest games of the postseason last year. And go to think about this, man. What if the Brewers beat the Nationals? They were that close. And I think the Astros are going to win the World Series. We just talked about the Astros. I think they win the World Series if the Brewers snuck that game out, man. So that's what I love about the game of baseball, David, is like you don't really even remember that, how hard it is to win the World Series. You know, the Nationals were that close to losing in the first round of the playoffs and not even coming close to winning. So that's kind of a recap of the Brewers, like we talked about. Yelich going down September 11th with that nasty injury. Obviously, really hurt their season there with an outstanding year from him last year. So what a tough way to go out for the Brewers.
Yeah. And again, it makes it that much crazier that the Brewers made that big run with no Yelich.
Yeah.
I went back and, like I said, looked at their stats. Their team just didn't have any studs other than him. I mean, it's just a bunch of guys, solid guys. And I guess it goes to show you the power of just a good team, guys that mesh. Obviously, a good manager that knew when to make moves. Man, I'm with you on Pomerantz. I thought the same thing. I thought, man, there's no way I'm pulling him right now. And it is tough. You know, again, he's one of the best closers in the world. But wow, Pomerantz was just mowing guys down. Pomerantz is one of those guys, man. He's hard to understand. You know, 4 ERA, 5 ERA, somewhere in there. He wasn't very good. I think he was with the Padres, if I remember right, before that. And gets traded, and magically he's the man, you know, down the stretch. And he just made that bullpen lights out. Yep. So anyway, very interesting team last year. The year before that, I challenge anybody. I'm going to say this. The Brewers have a bunch of really great followers, man. The information that's out there on the Brewers on some of these sites is awesome. But I challenge some of you baseball fans, go look at the lineups for the 18 and 19 Brewers and explain to me how in the world they got in the playoffs. It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I really do. I get to see them, you know, a lot, obviously, being in the Cubs division because we play every team in your division 400 times a year. So you see these guys a lot. And, yeah, I don't know, man. Their infield, some of their middle infielders that they throw out there, they throw different guys out there. It's crazy, man. It really is. And you know, this team was put together pretty nicely there for 2019 to make a run. And it just didn't happen for them. And they did do a good job, though. But moving along from 2019, David, what do you feel is the biggest strength of the 2020 Brewers this year?
So let's talk for a second, and this will lead me into this, about the 2019-2020 offseason. And I know we're going to start talk about biggest gains and biggest ads, but it was the year of sideways. You know, you could tell the Brewers don't believe in themselves. The ownership doesn't believe. And so it's like, oh, we're going to lose this guy. Well, we're going to add this guy who was similar last year. Or we're going to lose this guy. And so it's a lot of that going on. And so, you know, I believe the previous year their biggest strength was probably their lineup, and I believe it will be again this year. So they got Yelich back, obviously. They got Huira at second base now full-time. They still got Lorenzo Cain, Ryan Braun. And then they added Omar Narvaez from Seattle to kind of replace Grandal. And he's not going to replace Grandal. He's not as good, but he's a nice piece to put in there. And so they've got some nice bats. They got a little bit of depth there as well. And so I'm going to go with the biggest strength is their lineup.
Yeah, I'm going to echo your sentiments a little bit, but I'm going to go specifically in their lineup. I'm going to talk about the outfield in particular, I think, is their biggest strength. When you got Lorenzo Cain out there, and obviously El Garcia and Christian Yelich, those three guys in particular, I think is their strength. The infield, you know, it's all right. I'm not really sold on too many of those guys yet. I just don't really know if those guys are going to be. I'm not too sold on them yet. They got a lot to prove to me. And it's a completely different infield from last year. You know, you got guys in the lineup now that Yelich, like I said, he missed about 3 weeks of the season, and he still had 44 bombs and 97 ribbies. And David, this is something that I looked at, and I forgot he did this. He was the batting champ at 329. He was the on-base champ at 429. He was the slugging champ at 671. And he was the OPS champ at 1.100. That's unbelievable, man. He won all four of those statistical categories last year. what an absolute stud. And like we talked about with the Marlins, man, they let a lot of really good players go. And they could have been in a really good spot right now had they kept some of this talent, and they just didn't. And the Brewers got him back, and he mopped it up again last year. What a fantastic player he is. Guy you want on your team. He took a big chunk, he kept a big chunk of change off the table for him so that this team could go sign some people. And that's kind of what blows my mind is why didn't they then to make this team better this offseason, because they locked him up into a friendly deal, and he should be a little frustrated by that because they got to give him some guys to go with him. But, Kane was a little down. He was about 11 and 48. He had a 325 on base, and Garcia was 20 homers, 72 ribbies, and a 332 on base. So I'm going to go with those three. I'm pretty sure you already know this, but I'm not a Ryan Braun fan at all. I can't stand the guy.
No way.
He's up there with Joey Votto and in the top of my list of guys that I just can't stand. And he's 142 years old this year, so he's DHing. I hope his arms fall off when he swings. Not a fan of him at all. So I'm going to go with their outfield. So
yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, that outfield is awesome, and I didn't realize that about Yelich. Wow. And I think that further explains why they are where they are. But I'm with you, man. If I'm Yelich, I'm ticked. This offseason, it appears to me, after researching this a little bit, trying to get an ownership's head, that they were intent on trying to add talent because their farm system is so bad. And so, like, Zach Davies had a nice year last year. They ship him off for Eric Lauer and Luis Urias, I think is how you say his name. Two of the better prospects, but prospects who hadn't done anything with San Diego. And so I'm assuming that's what they're trying to do. But, man, if I'm Yelich, it's like, come on, I'm in my prime. I'm the best player in the game. Put some guys in here. Last year, the Brewers, I was looking through, they were 8th in the league in attendance. So don't give me this small market crap either, So I think their payroll this year is about $90 million, down from $120 million the year before. Come on, Brewers ownership. Give me a break, man. I mean, if you want to have a good team and you've got the face of your franchise, spend some money. It's not like you're waiting on the farm to come up. It's terrible, maybe the worst in the league.
Yeah.
I don't get it at all.
Yeah, I agree, man. And we're going to get into this a little later, but that farm system, ouch. It is bad. And I struggled really mightily going over this today with that farm system. And, I don't know what they were thinking as far as that goes. This, like I said, this team was that close last year to making a legit run at this. They had the Nationals by the throats and could have taken down what ended up being the best team in the league that year and just missed it. And then they just completely, to me, failed the offseason in every way, shape, and form. And we'll get to that as well a little bit later. So what's your biggest weakness on 2020?
For me, it's got to be the starting pitching. And to be honest with you, the relief corps outside of Hader doesn't give you any it doesn't make your heart skip a beat either. But the starting pitching, I'm assuming the Brewers may know something that we don't know. That's the only thing that I can assume. Woodruff had a good year last year. They added Lauer, who is young, still only 25 years old, but 4.45 ERA last year, pitching in San Diego, pitcher-friendly park. They've I lost my list here. Give me just a second. They lost Chase Anderson last year. Not great. They lost Gio Gonzalez. Again, not great. But they replaced those guys with unproven young guys. And so they should have added at least one more starting pitcher, at least one more, to be able to compete. And you think about the division that they're in. Look at the Reds rotation. Look at the Cubs rotation. How in the world are the Brewers going to match up with that? They're not going to do it. And so I just think it's going to be a rough year to be a Brewers fan. It's going to be very disappointing because, again, Yelich is in his prime. Now's the time they ought to be trying to go for it. but I'm not a believer at all. And here's the funny thing. So I'm driving down the interstate 2 nights ago, listening to MLB Network, and I don't remember who it was on there, but they were talking about how they thought the rotation could really be good for Milwaukee. And I just don't get it. I don't get it in any way, shape, or form. I mean, there's nothing in here that's like, oh, wow, this could be really awesome. So I think it's going to be a rough year in Milwaukee this year.
Yeah, Jimmy Nelson's another guy that was hurt a lot last year that was one of their top pitchers, too, that they lost in the offseason, too. And, man, I looked at their starters, and I'm with you, man. That's by far the biggest weakness. I cannot believe that this team is going into this season with these starters, David. I'm serious about that. I'm completely baffled that this team has rebounded from a season they had last year. They're going to go with Woodruff, who was 16-6 last year. He had a good year. He's their ace. Okay, I'll give you that. Adrian Hauser is 6-7 in his entire career. Brett Anderson's 59-61 his entire career.
My arm hurts just because you said that.
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to pitch this year? I mean, it's every other year. This is an even-numbered year, so probably not. I mean, I like Brett Anderson. He's had some great years. But you're dependent on that to be your number 3 starter?
He's not even a 500 pitcher. I mean,
no.
And then you got Josh Lindblom, who's 5-8 in his career, many times a reliever. And like you said, Lauer is 14-17 in his career. None of those guys have even winning records besides, Woodruff, and he's barely been a starter. He's got 22 decisions in his career. So, I don't know, David, like, how are you relying on these 5 guys to carry you, I'm baffled by it, really, to be honest with you. I see the list of the guys that they lost, and then I'm like, well, they probably went and got at least 1 or 2 pitchers, didn't they? And they really didn't, man. And this is really going to be a huge problem, I believe, for the 2020 Brewers this year, and it's going to end up hurting them in this season. I really believe that.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so what is the best case scenario then for the Brewers this year? What do you feel like the best thing they can do?
Man, I don't even believe this is a wild card team. I hate to say that. So best case scenario is you finish, ahead of the Pirates, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
No, yeah.
I mean, seriously, I just can't see them jumping any team. I mean, best case scenario is maybe they hit a lot of home runs and they're fun to watch. I mean, if I'm a Brewers fan, it's fun watching Yelich and Guerra and Braun and those, except for you. You don't like to watch Braun, but if they're going to have a good lineup. And so I guess the best case this year is you hope some prospects grow up in not in the minors this year and give you some hope, for next year. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I hate to be so down on a team, but I think the Brewers are going to kind of be Mr. Irrelevant this year.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I just don't see it. I see them finishing in 4th place. I really do. That's going to be their best case scenario is to jump above the Pirates and not finish in the cellar. I don't see it, man. I'm not impressed. I have not been impressed with this team. I think about a month or 2 ago, the MLB Network has like a line on the bottom that was running through all the projections of the starting lineups, the starting pitching rotation, the top prospects for every team, just run across the bar at the bottom. And I sat there and looked at the Brewers, and I kid you not, David, I had to rewind it and go back and look again because I looked at their rotation and I was like, who are these guys? Like, what is this? This is a joke, right? And sure enough, man, I looked more into it, and that's what they're going with. And I mean, I just don't get it, man. They're not going to do very much. I'm sorry to say this. If you're a Brewers fan, I'm going to go 4th place for best case scenario. That's really all I see out of these guys. So, What do you say worst case scenario then?
Well, I mean, let's throw this out there. Is the Pirates' rotation better than the Brewers?
Ooh.
It's debatable. It's very debatable. And so worst case scenario is what happens if the Pirates end up like they were last year and they're about 500 at the end of the year? I don't think that the Brewers are going to be there. I really don't. Now, like I said, I might be dead wrong. Somebody 3 or 4 months from now, I was probably going to look back and watch this podcast and laugh when the Brewers win the World Series, maybe. Maybe
No.
we want to completely miss. But, worst case scenario is one of these guys get hurt. What if Yelich, really got hurt this year and wasted it on a season where you knew you weren't going to win and you weren't trying? That would be a pretty bad scenario. And so, I guess I'll go with that if the Pirates are past the Brewers, that's pretty bad. That's pretty low.
Man, that's a good point you make about the Pirates' rotation versus theirs. They could sit down and study that a little closer. I mean, because we were really low on the Pirates' rotation, if you remember that correctly. That's a bad rotation. It just is bad rotation, and this one is a bad rotation too. So, man, I don't know. That's very debatable on which group of 5 you would rather have out of those two. Like if I was the Cubs offense and Cubs bullpen and I had to pick which team starting 5 out of those two, I would have a really hard time trying to break this down and figure it out who I would want to take for either team. And so I guess, like you said, the worst case scenario is, there's a couple guys on this team, and Lorenzo Cain's not getting any younger, and Ryan Braun's not getting any younger, and obviously Garcia has been playing forever, even though he's kind of a younger guy. But these guys aren't really that young anymore, so their window is starting to go down with that core guys. I mean, when you talk Brewers, their face of the franchise is Yelich now, but Braun has been up until then. So I don't know, man. It's tough.
Well, let me ask you this. Take Yelich out and take Hader out. Are the Pirates any worse than the Brewers? The Pirates have some interesting players.
Yeah.
And so the Brewers are probably a little bit better. I'm going to say that, but it's not much. It's not much. So yeah, it'll be an interesting season. Brewers fan, I hope we're wrong. I hope they're interesting again. I love when teams come out of nowhere. That's why I spent so much time honestly researching this, because I just don't get it. They obviously have a great manager, great fans. They averaged 37,000 fans last year. That's amazing in Milwaukee. So shout out to Brewers fans. I hope we're wrong.
Yeah, Craig Counsell, man, that guy knows what he's doing. Anybody who can have a batting stance like he did and still survive in the majors, you got to have some kind of brains,
The best all-time wiffle ball stance is him and Mickey Middleton and Gary Sheffield.
Yes. There you go. Those are some fun ones to do in the backyard, man, no doubt. They had the little chimney sweep, they called it, man. You get up there and just, I don't know how he pulled that off. I can barely stand in a normal stance. These guys do all these crazy things and get back to the hitting zone, and I don't know how they do it, man. But obviously that guy knows what he's doing, man. So big part of that 2001 World Series team he was too for the Diamondbacks, man.
Yeah.
Wow, he was really good in that playoff run for them. So
absolutely,
just a gamer, man, and he's a good manager. I'll give you that. So guy knows what he's doing. So all right, David. You got any position battles you can think of?
Third base is really interesting to me. They signed Eric Sogard, who is just a guy. He was actually in Milwaukee a couple years before that. Really did nothing. He goes to Toronto and just has a pretty mediocre season. They sign him. They trade for Luis Urias, who 23 years old, one of the Padres' top prospects, but honestly, looking through his minor league stats, he appears to just be a slapper, not somebody you would normally play at third. They have Jed Jerko, West Virginia guy, by the way.
Oh, nice.
He's been a guy at times, but he struggles hitting the ball. When he does, it usually goes far. And then you have Brock Holt in there. And so, it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. They're trying to replace a guy that hit 35 homers last year in Mike Moustakas. And so it's none of those guys are real inspiring, but hey, maybe they know something we don't know on some of these guys.
Yeah, it is third base. That's the only spot that you can look at with a battle. These 5 starters are set. Every other position set. That's it. Sogard's a gamer. He's a good player. I don't know if I kind of like, to be honest with you, that to me is a great utility player on a great team. That's a guy that you want to be able to throw into different spots when somebody needs a rest on a really great ball team. And I just don't see him as a everyday starter at a spot. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see it from him. And like you said, I like Jed Yurko a lot. I didn't know he was a West Virginia guy, but I've always liked the way he plays the game. Brock Holt too. I mean, Brock Holt's been like this his whole career, just wow, up and down, up and down. But I mean, when he's up, he's a really good ball player too. So one of those guys could sneak in there and steal a spot there. So yeah, I 100% agree with you, man. I was looking through this today, and that's really the only spot that I saw any potential for a position battle. And I believe Solgaard's going to win that job coming out of our 3-game spring training this year and inter-squad games. But yeah, I think he's going to be the one that starts out there, and we'll see where it goes from there. So.
Yep.
All right, David. So now we get to this crazy off season here, and to be honest with you, man, like when I was writing down names of guys that they lost and guys that they added, it took me a long time on this teams. There's a couple teams here we had like yesterday. I really struggled to find ads for the Astros. They only lost a few guys, and the Brewers lost a lot and gained a lot. They're a completely revamped team. So I'm going to read the guys that are the key ads we'll start with first, and which one of these guys you think is the best ad from the offseason. They got Brock Holt, Brett Anderson, Eric Lauer, David Phelps, Eric Sogard, Justin Smoke, Avisail Garcia, Omar Narvaez, and Jed Yurko.
So I'm going to go with Brett Anderson, mainly because they need pitching. And he obviously was their replacement for Davies, who was pretty good last year. And so, again, we've seen Brett Anderson be very good on multiple occasions. We know it's in there somewhere, just very inconsistent. So if Brett Anderson ended up being last year Brett Anderson, and you put him with Woodruff, that's a pretty decent 1-2 punch. The rest of those guys, I don't want to denigrate any of them. Avisail Garcia, is a above average player. But I don't think that they adequately replaced what they lost, I guess is how I'll put it. Brett Anderson has the best chance to maybe be a little more than what they lost.
Yeah, that's a good point. Here's the guy that and Brett Anderson, I think he's a pretty good pitcher, and I really believe he should be in that rotation. I was really surprised when I was reading through there, and he's going to be their 3 starter, obviously, but they got a guy in the offseason to replace all those guys that they got. I think he's probably the only guy that they got really free agency. I think the rest of those guys were just like relievers that they just became starters, so he's the only starter that they got from free agency that's going to be in their rotation. And he may be the guy, if your number 3 starter out of rotation, he could be it. Justin Smoke, I'm not really – I don't know how you feel about him. I just think he's a really bad hitter. I think he can hit bombs and drive in runs. A couple years back, he had 90 ribbies with the Blue Jays and 77 and steadily declined to 61 last year. So very inconsistent hitter. Has never really gone over 50 ribbies until that one awesome all-star year in 2017 where he hit 90 ribbies. And this guy, he has a career batting average of .231. And every year but 2017, that all-star year, he's had a really, really bad batting average. And on base is not too great either. So I'm not really sold on him. Not a great hitter. He's their everyday first baseman now, and so just an interesting one there. But I'm not going with him. I'm going with Avisail Garcia. Like I already talked about, I think this outfield is their strength, and he's a really good ball player. So I'm going to go with him as far as the best guy they added for the offseason.
So my question for management, again with the Brewers, if you were going to sign Justin Smoke, why wouldn't you just keep Eric Thames? Hit 25 homers last year. I realize he's probably not the best fielder, but, I mean, he's a better hitter than Smoke, right? I mean, over multiple years, he's a better hitter than Smoke. He signed for 1 year and $4 million with the Nationals. I just don't understand the thinking there. I just don't get it. I mean, again, maybe they have some super awesome scout that saw a hole in in Smoke's swing that maybe they can fix. But Smoke's literally had like 2 good years, and so I just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you too. That's why when when you see the name Justin Smoke, you're kind of like, oh, okay, but then you got to remember this is a position where you need an absolute stud at first base, and just very inconsistent and not a good hitter. So I think it's going to cause him more problems, and he's going to help them. So I don't know, man. So departures is a long list too. He has Monty Grandal, Mike Moustakas, Eric Thames, Jordan Lyles, Gio Gonzalez, Drew Pomeranz, Jeremy Jeffers, Junior Herrera, Matt Albers, Jimmy Nelson, Alex Claudio, Hernan Perez, and Travis Shaw. Man, ouch.
Guys, a lot of guys right there.
David, that hurts. I forgot how bad an offseason they had. Which one of those guys you think is going to hurt them the most?
Man, it's got to be Grandal. With the names that they had last year, the fact that they got in the playoffs, it tells me they had a great catcher to manage that pitching. And I don't really know Narvaez, what his defensive capabilities are, but Grandal is one of the best. And so I think that's going to hurt them. His handling of the pitching staff is going to hurt that team more than those other guys. And like you said, there's a lot of good names on that list that they are really going to miss. But I'll have to go with Grandal.
I'm going to go with Moustakas. This guy's a gamer, a winner, 30, 35 bombs every year, like you said. I just love that guy, man. If he was a big part of the Royals championship and big part of what the Brewers did here last year, and just a winner wherever he goes, it seems. And the Reds once again got him. Wow. I can't wait for that one, by the way, man. That's going to be a fun one, but just tough. That's a great hitter they lost there, and I think to me that's the one that's going to hurt them the most because middle of the lineup bat, just an absolute stud, great guy to have on your team. So, man, I can't
argue with you there at all. Yeah, I thought about him as well. Very underrated player. He had to sign a 1-year deal last year, coming off 2 straight years where he hit around 30 homers. I think 1 year was 28 and 1 year was 33. He had to sign a 1-year deal. Man, what a steal they got. Yeah. Pay the guy. Pay the guy. I think the Reds had to give him 4 years. He deserves it. He deserves 4 years. He's been a good player for a long time. Like you said, helped the team win a World Series. So that's going to hurt.
It is. That's a tough offseason, man. And this team's in a little bit of trouble. So, all right, man. So let's move on to our next one, which is the prospect watch. This is going to be tough too. What do you got for prospects?
So I love legacy players or guys that are related to major leaguers.
I know where you're going.
Yes. Alan Ashby. Alan Ashby, nephew of Andy Ashby. And so I was reading on him. He actually is pretty interesting. So he had the most strikeouts in junior college the year that he was drafted. Funky delivery guy with good control, much like his uncle. I don't even remember. Andy Ashby kind of had a weird delivery. Allen is a lefty. They say he's got a wipeout slider, so probably his floor is lefty specialist. He's going to be a major leaguer. I would almost guarantee based upon what I read, but it might be as a specialist. And so maybe that's a guy, and maybe not this year, but maybe next year that could help him down the line somewhere. But definitely out of all their prospects, the most interesting one that I read, dead last in the league by most rankings in farm system, only one top 100 player, and he's like 98th. So not a very interesting farm system at all.
Yeah, this was really hard, and I saw Ashby too, and I immediately was like, Alan or Andy, which one's he related to? And, Andy's nephew, Aaron here. So I just threw the name.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. But, yeah, I just threw the name out there. I know nothing about him. I didn't even look into it. I looked into him a little bit. He doesn't seem like he's really on track anytime soon. Their top 8 prospects are not even coming close to being up yet, which is not good. There, like you said, one guy in the top 100, not good at all. This farm system is drained. I wonder why. I wish I could do a little more of an in-depth study as to why they're so depleted. I think maybe they were trying to get guys when they were making the playoff runs here. Maybe that's what just kind of drained their farm system here. But I'm really not sure, 100% sure why it's the way it's in. The one guy I came up is Bryce Terang. He's a shortstop, 20 years old. He's not even close. He's considered their number one prospect. He was their first round pick in 2018, 384 on base, strong DH, second and short, 4 home runs and 632 at bat. So he's not a home run guy. He's more of a hitter. He hits well, draws a lot of walks, lefty stick. But to be honest with you, if that's your top prospect, you're in deep trouble, David, because I saw some video on him. I watched him. He's good, don't get me wrong, but if he's your number one prospect, ooh.
What in the world are the Brewers going to do if they have injuries? I mean, there's just nothing there. I need to look at the 60 players that they kept and see if maybe they have some waiver wire guys that are interesting. I didn't do that, to be honest with you. I just looked at their depth chart. But, yeah, there's nothing. Even the guy that was number 8, I don't remember his name. He was an outfielder. But pretty much they said he took a big step back last year. So he's not an option this year, and they're strong in the outfield anyway. They're not going to need him.
Right.
So, wow. I don't know what's happened there either.
Yeah, that would be an interesting list. I'm going to try and pull that up, after we get done talking about the Brewers tonight and just look at their 60-man squad, their taxi squad here, and see what they got for that group there. And, oof, I don't know, man. I have a hard time with their 30-man roster. I'm probably going to have a really hard time with their 60-man. So, whew. All right. Well, that's enough of that. So you got any trivia for me on the Brewers, David?
Yep. So in 1981, the Brewers had their first MVP winner. Who was it?
Rollie Fingers.
Man, you've been looking at the same site I've been looking at. Look at you. 104 ERA. Wow. What a stud.
You and your closer trivia, man. You really got to quit this. I'm just going to start studying closer trivia for every team that we come up with. I know he's a Hall of Famer, but closer trivia, get out of here, man. What are you going to start doing now? You're going to mix it up next podcast, and we're going to do middle relievers, who has the most holds of all time or something?
Yes, that would be awesome. I would be all for that. I could wear you out on some long reliever trivia.
I don't doubt that, man. You'd probably get me on a lot of those, man. So you're gonna laugh when you hear my trivia question, and the reason why I just popped your answer in 0.4 seconds. I don't even know if I want to read it anymore. I got to come up with something different because I know for a fact now you're going to 100% get this. So that makes me angry and makes me want to switch what I'm doing right away.
I'll probably miss it, man. The Brewers are an easy team to forget. I had to really do some research to come up with anything.
All right. I might stumble you because you might get thrown off by which one of their studs it is. So I still think you're going to get it, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So, like you just mentioned, my question is, who are the 2 players in Brewers history who have won an MVP award?
Robin Yount and Paul Molitor.
David!
Oh, and Rollie Fingers. Paul Molitor won one too, but it was with a different team.
Okay, so you rebounded. I'll give it to you. I was like, what are you talking about? But that's what I was talking about is Molitor is going to throw you off, and I would have done the same thing. I would have had a really hard time if I didn't have this question for you. I would have had a hard time knowing it was Rollie Fingers. I would have gone Paul Molitor and Robin Yount, no doubt. I would have gone with those 2. And,
Yount won the next year, I'm thinking. He won in 82.
Yes, he did. I believe I wrote down his next one was 89, so he won 2 of them, 82 and 89. Robin Yount, what a player he was, man. If I'm not mistaken, he played shortstop and center field, which is obviously very versatile to be able to do both of those. That's crazy to me in the major leagues. You can play 2 positions like that are completely different from each other. Got to be a really good athlete. And when you look at Robin Yount, you don't look at him and think he's an athlete, man, just by looking at him. So that guy was a stud, and Molitor too, and those are the 2 guys you think of right away when you think of the Brewers. And those those are some good questions, man. So
listen here, I got to throw something in right here, a little jab, just for funsies. Guess who has equal wins above replacement as Robin Yount and Paul Molitor? Your boy Lou Whitaker. I just want to throw that in there. 75 wins above replacement for old Lou Whitaker. And that shocked me when I pulled up Yount and Molitor because those are the two, the faces of their franchise from the 80s and part of the 90s. And it was pretty shocking. Those guys were great players. Both had 3,000 hits. Anybody has 3,000 hits, you're a Hall of Famer. I don't care if it is Omar Vizquel or whoever, You get 3,000 hits, Starlin Castro, you should be a Hall of Famer in my book. I don't care how you got them. But, don't want to throw a little shade on Lou Whitaker, man. I'm telling you, he's got a case.
So, listen, I thought about this a little today. I'm not going to lie to you. So, I'm having a hard time with a couple things with this because when you think about every position that is out there, and we're talking about Utley and Whitaker being the 12th and 13th best players to ever do something in the game of baseball at their position. Are we doing something wrong in looking at second baseman and shortstops offensive numbers a little different? We're supposed to look at them, those numbers a little different than your outfield numbers, your corner outfield numbers, your corner infield numbers. They're not supposed to be the same as your two middle infield guys, numbers wise, as far as offensive stats go. So I don't know, man. I'm having a hard time with that.
I'm not putting him in. I'm just saying he got excluded awful fast. I remember when we were having this conversation, because you've always been an Alan Trammell guy. I'm not sure how you put Trammell in and you leave Whitaker out. I mean, I'm just being honest about it. They're not that different in the long run. But anyway, that's just my argument.
Yeah.
I was on the fence on Alan Trammell too.
Yeah. See, the thing about it is, though, I mean, Trammell, Trammell had 2,400 hits, which is not 3,000, And, yeah, I mean, 185 homers, 1,000 ribbies. Those aren't outstanding popping numbers, 352 on base is great. So he was a great player.
Let's do this. Let's go line by line right here. I got Whitaker's stats in front of me.
Yep.
All right. Wins above replacement. Whitaker.
I got Trammell's. Go ahead.
Whitaker, 75.1.
Trammell, 70.7.
Hits, Whitaker, 2369.
Trammell, 2365.
Home runs, 244.
185.
Come on, man. Batting average, 276.
285.
RBI, 1084.
1003.
Let me tell you something cool about old Lou Whitaker. More walks than strikeouts. 1197 on the walks. 1099 on the strikeouts. OBP, 363. Slugging, 426.
OBP, 352. Slugging, 415.
Whitaker's a Hall of Famer, dude. If Alan Trammell's a Hall of Famer, Whitaker is a Hall of Famer. Prove me wrong.
Man, that's a good one, man. Wow.
It's a popularity contest, dude.
That's pretty eye-opening right there. Not gonna lie to you.
Yeah. I didn't jump on the Whitaker bandwagon. Like I said, I'm still not 100% on it until I heard someone on Baseball Tonight, maybe Harold Reynolds, going through his stats, and I was like, dude, how come he's not getting any love? But it's because he's not the media darling. He's not the name you heard when associated with the Tigers. It should have been.
Yeah.
That's what I hate about the Hall of Fame. People can take numbers and turn them into anything they want. But you can put the same guy side by side and they'll go, no, he's not a Hall of Famer. He didn't do this or he didn't do that. He didn't have this big hit or whatever. Come on, man.
But you did say something the other night, though. You did say something the other night. You said, I want the guys who are names in the Hall of Fame. You said that.
Famous people. Yeah.
Yeah, famous.
Alan Trammell isn't famous in Charleston, West Virginia. I hate to tell you. He might be in Chicago. But in in Charleston, West Virginia, and places south, he's no more famous than Jeff Blauser. Okay, so that doesn't hold any water.
What?
No.
Alan Trammell was the man.
He hit 185 homers, man. That's like
he's a shortstop.
Kristen Yelich or something.
Ozzie Smith hit 4 homers in his career.
Don't get me started on that one. Don't get me started.
That guy.
Popularity contest.
Ozzie Smith is a Hall of Famer.
Put Lou in the Hall.
Lou Whitaker's better than Ozzie Smith ever dreamed of being. I'll give you that.
He's obviously better than Alan Trammell. It's kind of not debatable.
Man, that's a good one, man. We got to go back to the Detroit podcast and add this to the end of it. All right, Brewers fans. Sorry, we'll get back to your stupid team here.
Somehow the Tigers are more interesting all of a sudden.
Yeah, no doubt. These idiots. Let's get back to these guys who are going to finish 4th place. All right, so stadiums. County Stadium from 1970 to 2000 and Miller Park from 2001 to present. David, have you been to either one of these?
No, but let me just say, Miller Park for me is real high on the bucket list. I just think that stadium is cool. I like the fan-shaped roof. I like the windows in the back. I've always liked that stadium. So that's definitely one I want to visit. I don't remember anything about whatever county stadium that they had before. You know, like I said, the Brewers have kind of always just been, for me, a little bit irrelevant. They never were a team that I followed. They haven't had a lot of good teams growing up, so I really don't remember anything about that stadium. But Miller Park is way high on my list of places I want to go.
Yeah, so I'm going to go yes on both. That's an easy one. Obviously, they're 90 miles north of us. It's really close. It's really easy to get tickets. Really easy to go up there and watch the Cubs play for cheap instead of paying $400 to go to watch the Cubs play. So you can go up there and watch them play for $50, and you can sit in a good spot. So I've been up there a lot. I've been up to both stadiums. I like the new one a lot more than the old one. I'll give you that. This stadium's really nice. My sister-in-law lives up in Milwaukee. Sometimes she'll get tickets for us and we'll go. So it's a lot of fun to go watch them play up there. So check mark both of those. Bernie's slide is awesome. That thing takes up pretty much the whole stadium.
Yeah, I'm into that too. I forgot to throw that in on mine. That's one of the reasons I would like to go. I think that's cool.
It's a nice field. I actually got to walk on it after the game. They let the kids go out there and run the bases, and so of course me getting out there on the field, I got to walk on it. Loved every second of that. Bob Uecker has a statue up in the very top by the press box up there, and let me just give Bob Uecker some love, man. I absolutely love listening to Bob Uecker. So if we ever go up to see my sister-in-law and the Brewers are on, I will turn him on, and just makes you laugh, man. The guy's got a sense of humor that is
he's awesome.
So dry, sometimes you can't pick it up, but just an awesome baseball guy. And to be honest with you, man, I would rather listen to him do the games when the Cubs are on the playing the Brewers. I just would love to listen to him, describe it all. So big love to Bob Uecker, and good field, man. It really is.
Bob Uecker, what a great guy to have announced the Cleveland Indians on Major League.
Yeah.
And the reason why is he's used to teams just like that. No name. You just have to make up stuff to make it interesting. I love Bob Uecker. I'm with you, man. He's hilarious.
So here's a trivia question I can give you. Since you already, I got a fly or something here. beat up a fly. Here's a trivia question for you, since I already pretty much put that one on a platter for you when you had the same one. What TV show did Bob Uecker play in?
What? Laverne and Shirley. I have no idea. That was in Milwaukee, wasn't it?
Laverne and Shirley. I'm going to have to now see. I'm going to doubt myself here a little bit, but Bob Uecker was on a TV show. He was a regular on one of those shows. I can't remember. Oh, yes.
You don't even know the answer to your own trivia question.
Yes. No. Mr. Belvedere.
Oh, I never watched that show one time.
So yeah, I mean that was like a show from 1985 to 1990. We were kids.
Yeah.
I've seen it probably twice, but he was a regular on that show. So, I mean, not only is he an announcer and a former baseball player, but he's an actor too. So, guy's talented, man. Major
Yeah,
League,
no doubt.
obviously a great actor in that movie. One of the best baseball movies of all time. Just a bit outside,
Yeah.
man. Just
Who hasn't used that? Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So anyway, man, yeah. If you're ever here and you make a long week out of it when you come here, man, we can knock out that one. We could do. You could realistically come here, knock out 3 stadiums in 3 days, man, because you can go from that dirty thing on the south side, you can go to the Mecca, and then you can go up north to the Cheeseheads and get 3 stadiums knocked out in 3 consecutive days. You could probably do it with the schedule, and man, those would be 3 to get rid of right away, and you'd love it, man. It'd be a good time.
Yeah, man, I'd love to do that. Definitely need to do that at some point.
And I think it'd be worth it since you've never even came to see me, so we're on pace to see each other again at the age of 80. So, um, so you got to come and knock all 3 of them out. The White Sox, we can go there for like $1. You won't have to spend a lot of money to go there. We will have to spend a lot of money to go see the Cubs, and the Brewers are pretty cheap too. So you really wouldn't break the bank too much. I'd help you, with all the parking and stuff. We'd figure all that stuff out to where we wouldn't have to park, and because I'll tell you what, parking at Wrigley can be $70, which is unbelievable.
Oh my word.
So bad. So yeah, we got to do that. Go see the Brewers too. That'd be a really good one to do. So, who is your favorite Brewer of all time?
DJ, you're going to hate my answer.
You're gonna say Ryan Braun, aren't you?
Yes. No, actually, I'm not. So my favorite Brewer of all time was only a Brewer for a half of a season.
Oh,
one of my favorite seasons was in 2008. The Brewers were trying to make a run, and they traded for CC Sabathia, who totally put the team on his back and carried it straight to the wild card game. It was amazing. 1.65 ERA. And not only that, he had a couple big home runs towards the end of the year too. And so that was one of my favorite seasons, my most memorable seasons from the Brewers. And so I'm going to say that's my favorite player, but I also really respected Paul Molitor over the years, not only with the Brewers, but also with the Blue Jays. He was a part of a World Series team there, and the Twins. And so, I thought he was a decent manager, to be honest with you. I think he got dealt kind of a bad hand there. And so hopefully at some point he makes it back. But Paul Molitor and CC Sabathia.
Nice. When you do think of the Brewers' history, you always will think of what CC did for them down. I don't know how his arm didn't fall off that year, how much they used him, man. It seemed like every third day they ran him out there to make the playoffs, and then they just ran out of gas at the end there. But who was the shortstop on that 2008 team you're talking about? Because that's my guy. Do you remember who the shortstop was on that team?
J.J. Hardy?
J.J. Hardy, buddy. Good one. That was nice. That's clutch. Yeah, that's my guy. I love J.J. Hardy. Just a gamer, great player. Devin loves J.J. Hardy. I don't know how he really did that, but he was a big fan. He's seen him with the Orioles, obviously. Never saw him with the Brewers, but yeah, JJ had a really good career. He didn't really have a Hall of Fame career by any means. He just had 1,500 hits, so he's like half a Hall of Famer, and 188 homers, 688, 305 on base. Average season was 20 homers, 71 ribbies, so not a superstar or anything, but I just love the way he played the game. Loved to watch him play. Even when he went on to play with Baltimore, I really liked him a lot. And then, so I'll go with J.J. Hardy, and then I'll throw a few names at you too. Paul Molitor, Robin Yount, Jeff Jenkins, and did I mention that I hate Ryan Braun?
Probably, he would have been a Hall of Famer probably had he not roided the year before last, right? You're going to throw that in there?
Oh, yeah. I'm so happy that I don't even have to mention his name at Hall of Fame time. Just put him under the trash with all those other idiots. Oh, that guy.
I've never been a Ryan Braun fan myself. I don't guess I hated him, but I just didn't really care for him.
Not a fan, man. So, well, David, that's all the questions I got for the Brewers. That's everything we talk about. We already talked about our former teammate there. So, anything you got to add here for 2020 Brewers before we sign off?
No, I will add one thing. So in my life, I tried out for one team, and that was the Milwaukee Brewers. At West Virginia State College, they had a tryout one time. I went for like 20 minutes. After that, I thought I might be a Brewers fan until I couldn't find anything to root for. And so that's my one Brewers story. I got a tryout for them one time. Cool experience, a lot of fun. But that's the last thing I can throw in.
That's awesome, man. I didn't even know that about you. You didn't even ever tell me that. So, see how close friends we are, you know?
I think I was 16. Well, I found out in the paper. I read in the paper they were coming. I made my dad take me down there. I thought for sure that they were going to discover the next A-Rod. They just didn't agree. So, and that's why they've sucked all these years. They needed me.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. That's a cool story. Good one to add here at the end for us. So, all right, buddy. Well, I believe we are going on to the Toronto Blue Jays tomorrow, and that is going to be a lot of fun. I am looking forward to that one a lot more than I was looking forward to the Milwaukee Brewers podcast tonight. So I'm going to have a good time tomorrow studying up on the Blue Jays, and watch out for those Blue Jays this year, man. Yep. More so 2021, 2022, but they're going to be good, no doubt.
Very interesting. Yep.
All right, buddy. So we'll sign off. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. All 33 of our fans, we appreciate you. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you.